was making millions. He was the best. And I remember the owner of the business, the franchise, he said to me once, he makes more money than me, and I pay him all that commission. But they were happy to because they bring them so much business. So you can either have two things. You can either have the money or the time, but you can't have both. We started to develop systems like that were able to run without us being there. And that's when I started to realize, that's what makes a business a business. Its ability for the owner to be able to step out of a lot of it or all of it, effectively, and still have it grow. And that's been my objective for all the businesses now, really. And we're getting there.
Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of The Freedom Experience. I'm your host, John Moncrief. So this week, my guest is Lloyd James Ross. He's an investor, an entrepreneur, an international speaker, and the man behind the hit podcast, Money Grows on Trees. Now, Lloyd's built multiple seven-figure businesses. He's earned a 2-Comma Club award from ClickFunnels, and he holds the Legacy Club Millionaire title with Isagenix. But it wasn't just his business accolades that stood out for me in this episode. What was really important is how Lloyd thinks about time, and we'll talk about through that episode. But his family's really important to him. He's a proud husband to Alicia, a dog dad to Elvis, their sausage dog. And when he's not speaking to crowds of 7,000 or running one of these great businesses, he's probably out walking Elvis, spending time with Alicia, or potentially investing in Chinese equities. Seriously, you'll hear about that in this episode. So in this episode, we talk about his upcoming book, Become Time Rich, and why this concept matters more than ever. Lloyd says, the busier you are, the poorer you get. And that's not just financially, but with your time and your energy too. So this is really important for business owners, this idea of trying to be time rich over just cash and money rich. Like, how do you buy back your time? And we talk a lot about that in this episode. You'll hear why building systems that work without you is the only way to achieve freedom. Lloyd shares how he's intentionally designed his calendar to stay open, and why hiring A-player partners, not just employees, has been a game changer for him. So if you've ever felt like your business is just one giant to-do list, or you're seriously time poor, then this is the one for you. Let's get into it with Lloyd.
Cool.
Lloyd, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'm super excited as well. I thought, as we do, to just start with a little bit of your background, but as I was saying before we hit the start button, I was really intrigued by your father's story. 38 years old, business worth 50 odd million, and it just kind of evaporated almost overnight.
Yeah. Interesting story. What had happened is he was a big hitter in the insurance business. So he was writing, he once did 100 insurance policy sales face to face in a week. It was extremely difficult. He did it twice. And in the late 80s, he was in his late 20s, and he was earning $1.2 million bonuses in the 80s in his late 20s. So he was the best in the business in terms of life insurance goes. They used to offering to fly him to New York, and he was the best in the country here for 10 years. And so he'd built up, beyond those years, in his 30s, he'd built up one of the largest, in fact, it was the largest managing insurance agency in Australia, in the whole country. Wow, and in our state, it was in the top, it was like 100 and something top biggest company in the state. And he was only 38, which is quite interesting because it seems so young now. But they had 30,
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. They had 30,000 clients with 100 consultants there. And what had happened was the managing insurance company, Colonial Mutual, they didn't pay out specific insurance policies to some Aboriginals that lived in Australia. And it got into the media and it got a little bit out of control. They didn't pay the policies. And that was a fairly concerning thing. But it wasn't that bad. It just they made it bad. And they should have just paid out the policies. And then what happened was they actually then terminated. One of the agents was working in the company my dad had, and they terminated. They had a deal. They had a contract signed to sell half of the business for $25 million. I think it might have been $20 million. I don't know the exact numbers back then in 1994. And what happened was the morning they went to sign the deal and sign the contract, or they'd signed the contract and they went to do something, they terminated the contract. They wrongfully terminated the contract, and they didn't need to do that, but they did. And what happened was my dad then took them to court, and for a couple of years fought that in court, in the Supreme Court here in Australia.
God, and nobody wins in those wars, eh?
Well, I mean, at that point, because they'd taken everything from him, he had no choice but to fight. And what's interesting about the case is that he won.
Okay. Yeah.
He won the case. It was like David and Goliath.
Yeah.
And he won the case. He had he fought the QCs here, the Queen's Counsel, and won. And what happened then was he ran out of money to run the case. And so in the case, you had to then sue for damages. And he just didn't have enough money to sue for damage, so he had to call it quits and wave the white flag and walk away. And effectively that business, would have been worth about that, and he lost it all and had to start all over again from behind the eight ball because he had to file for bankruptcy. And I was in grade 4. I was 11 then, so I remember all that fairly vividly. And that was a really, I think now to my age, because I'm 41, and I think to myself now even, I mean, I don't have an empire like that, but even if I lost everything we created now, I'd be very irritated of having to start all over because the effort and energy and time and so I'm very, very proud of him to be able to stand up and dust himself off and rebuild. And he's done that incredibly well. Incredible, really.
Yeah, I think I remember listening to something, probably a podcast with you, where he actually comes in and tells you that it's over. This is what's happened. I think he had sat you down and said this.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. well, if I think that VSL is still around. If people go to lloydjross.com, there's a video sales letter on that landing page, and it starts off with that exact moment, and it goes along the lines of, I was 11 years of age, and my dad walked in and sat me down and said, "We've lost everything," and that's what he did at our house. And I just remember bawling I didn't really know what was going on, but it seemed pretty bad, and we lost that house. Lost everything, and then he had to start all over again. It sucks obviously to happen to you, but it's nice to know that it's possible to regroup, and rebuild, and it's quite an incredible story. And he's now successful and multimillionaire. He's actually rebuilt twice, and there's some interesting lessons to take from that too. But yeah, quite interesting. I always think, what happens if they didn't renege on the contract and it went through? And I mean, God, it'd be incredible to see what would have happened.
Yeah, had things gone the other way. But I mean, I'm curious about that, how that shaped your purpose and where you are right now. How did that play into, or did it into?
Well, I often think that I'm probably half my dad and half my mum. My dad's not a risk taker, and my mum's probably not so much a risk taker in some respects. And so I'm kind of fraught in the middle. And so I have this daily, battle with myself. Should I take more risk? Should I be more conservative? But I think growing up with my dad, in being so successful, it does get you around people like him and others to model them. And I've definitely modeled lots of things off my dad watching him. The work ethic. I learned to sell through him. I worked with him in our property business for 7 years, and he taught me to sell. And working closely with him was definitely a very great bridge for me from employee world to entrepreneurship world and running my own business. And so I'm indebted to him for being able to do that with him at work, and see that. And I love my dad and get along with him so well. It was just great to be able to work with him, but. Watching him over time and listening to some of the stories, I didn't understand that whole story until I was a lot older. But yeah, of course it inspires you, and I always think about those things when I'm going through some tricky times in my own businesses, and it just allows you to pick yourself up and move forward. And so what a great role model or example to follow. So it definitely shaped me in the sense that it showed me how to be resilient and how to go after things and get what you want and those stuff.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And other mentors along the way? Is that something that's played a big role in your life? And
Yeah, I think, I mean, definitely my dad was my major mentor up until, really into my 30s. I would think he was the main mentor. I had another one when I was an employee for working for the largest real estate developer in the world. I was in Abu Dhabi developing the Formula One Grand Prix circuit when I was about 23. And I had this great boss there, and his name is Matt Hardwick, and he was just a great manager of projects, and I learned a lot of management skills from him, which was great. And he was a really encouraging guy, so I was very lucky to have him. But then every entrepreneur is born from a bad manager, and so what happened was there was a reshuffle in the company. It started to go broke after the GFC. It was bailed out by the Abu Dhabi government effectively, and it's still around today actually. The company, and there was a reshuffle, and I kind of was crossed to a different department, reporting to someone else, and it just wasn't the same, and I was completely uninspired at that point, and that's what prompted me to look for other opportunities. I ended up working back here in Australia with my dad for 7 years before moving out on my own and starting my own online businesses. So, yeah, I've had that mentor, and I've had another one. Like when I went into the online business world, I was thrust into the world of network marketing and events and marketing and sales and so forth in a different industry. And I actually I went to an event once in Perth. I flew over there with my wife, and we went to this event. And the guy there who was at the event facilitating, his name is David Wood. And he was actually the number one sales trainer for T. Harv Eker, and he was the number one trainer there and facilitator for the fastest growing personal development company in the world, Peak Potentials. So T. Harv Eker wrote the book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and he runs these Millionaire Mind intensive events all over the world. And David was his top trainer, and so David really has mentored me in speaking, facilitating, training. He inspired me. In fact, he is actually on the back of my latest book. He's right here. He endorsed it there as well. So,
and the cover of that latest book?
This is called Become Time Rich.
Okay, so this is what's coming, and we're gonna talk about this a bit. Yeah,
this is what's coming. And Sharon Lecter, who is the co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, she also endorsed it for me. She's right there. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's coming out 28th of May.
Yeah, it's coming out 28th of May. And we're going to host a big launch for that. But yeah, a really exciting project that we've been working on for 2 years. So
cool. So maybe before we get to that, you trained as a lawyer. You moved to Abu Dhabi, worked the circuits or Formula One circuits, sort of looking at putting that together. But did you go into real estate as well at some time? And obviously,
I have this. I live in a city that's like lives and breathes real estate. If you are from this city, then you're they often say if you're successful in the town that I live in, you're either in drugs or real estate. But so there's so many people in real estate. So half the citizens are agents and half the citizens are buyers. But when I was 20 and I graduated from my first degree, undergraduate, I went and did my master's, and I actually left and worked for the most successful Ray White real estate agency in the country here in my city. When I was 20, I got my full real estate license. It's still hanging on the wall right there. Actually, it's still current. And I started to get into real estate, commercial leasing and sales, more the leasing side when I was fairly young. I was 20 and had some success, but I left there to go back to law school and became a lawyer. And then beyond that, went to Abu Dhabi, got into real estate development, and then came back and got into business with my dad, which is real estate marketing and sales, off the plan.
Okay.
Houses and units. And so I did that for 7 years. And so I'm still associated with that company in terms of my license, but it's my dad's company too. But I mean, yeah, I've been around real estate a long time. I was even a property lawyer. I did conveyancing law when I did law for that brief moment. So my whole background has been real estate, but I don't own any.
And that's an interesting, I suppose, a question itself. I'm really curious about how you think about that. And I think I did come across that somewhere where you said, I don't own real estate. So maybe let's kind of talk a bit about that. What's your thinking there? Well,
it's interesting. It's like my dad's like real estate to death, and my town and city is real estate. I'm a real estate. I haven't owned any. I'm a little bit like the NFL star's son who turns into a ballerina. Why don't I own real estate? It's interesting thing. And the reason for it is when I was younger and I was living in Dubai, you can't really, back then you couldn't really buy a fee simple property. It was a lease. It was a 9-year lease. And I just remember thinking, do I want a big mortgage on a lease right now in my early 20s, or do I want to stay flexible? And the answer was flexible, because I didn't know where I wanted to live. I didn't know if we were going to be there long term. So I just never really put down a deposit to buy anywhere there. And I could have, of course, working for a developer, I could have probably got a deal, but I just felt like it wasn't my calling to go and buy pieces of bricks. I'm not so inspired by buying bricks. It just doesn't interest me. It's so plain vanilla. And what's fascinating is that when I came back here and got into real estate sales, I still didn't own any, and I put all my money into shares because I became really a student of Warren Buffett. And I just preferred the liquidity and the flexibility that, and the passive income and the cash flow that shares brought without having to go into a lot of debt. And I guess I'm scarred a little bit and have recency bias that prevents me getting into a lot of debt and getting to real estate, because I was 23 when the global financial crisis was really coming down heavily on, I went to Sydney, before I went to Abu Dhabi, I went to Sydney to get a job in investment banking, and Bear Stearns collapsed and the whole world just collapsed. All the real estate in my city was dropping by 50%. And so I guess I've always thought, do I really want to hold real estate and lots of debt, or do I want to be an entrepreneur who's got liquid assets, passive income, and do I want to spend my money building businesses instead? And that's really where I've focused my energy and time, is cash flow businesses rather than lots of debt.
And that's so interesting. So many entrepreneurs see the business as an ATM rather than an asset. And I mean, certainly, obviously, that cash flow is super important, but building an asset that generates cash flow rather than this kind of personal ATM thing, and making that mindset switch.
Yeah, well, I think I got into network marketing because I wanted to build this side hustle as an asset, because it's a subscription-based business model where people are buying product every month. And we've had that business for 11 years. We just actually got past our 11th year. We've made millions of dollars in profits, and that was assisting us to put it into shares to have a more of a longer-term approach to cash flow. So we have a multi-million-dollar share portfolio that we've built over time. We have this network marketing business that pays us, like last week we made $8,000 in a week. And so we have that cash flowing business, the share portfolio. We've got a laundromat business that produces $100,000 net income, $100,000 a year of net income, 40% margins. And so it kills real estate. Like, you'd have to buy a $1.5 million piece of real estate to get the same cash flow. And then we've also got an education business. We've probably got one of the fastest growing education businesses in Australia. And we also got a small events business that I'm building alongside a business partner at the present time. So we have all that going on, and it requires, it makes me feel better to be able to put my hands on money whenever I need it, because when you're in business, sometimes it needs some capital. You don't want to run out of money. So
you want to keep that liquidity.
Yeah, and it's not that we need it with the businesses, because they do create their own liquidity, but I just it just gives me so much flexibility.
Yeah.
I'm not and it's, I'm going to say it bores, the real estate thing is so boring. Like, what do? You buy real estate, and then I know you can rezone it, and you can renovate it, and you can you can reuse it and split it and do blah, blah, blah. But craftsmanship is very low on my spiritual gifts, and I have no intention of doing any renovating. It seems to me that every single person I meet that's renovating is just the saddest person and the happiest person you meet. And I don't want to be that. And so, real estate's boring. You buy this big thing and it sits there. It doesn't take a high IQ to be a real estate investor. You buy the bricks and mortar and you just leave it.
Yeah. The business side is far more exciting.
I think, for me anyway. I mean, not for everybody, but for me, it's more exciting. You get to deal with people, and it's more challenging, and there's
more ups and downs.
Yeah, and I think even buying stocks too. Like, I'm fairly heavily invested in Chinese equities at the minute, and not that great investing should be too exciting, but it's just interesting to be able to buy undervalued businesses in China than it is to buy a house. I mean, just on the stocks, so you've got a number of businesses that are operating, but do you have that sort of one big thing that
you are going back to the conversation around network marketing and going to that event. You have the businesses that you've built and that you operate, but have you also got this kind of one big thing that you've become insanely good at? I remember you talking about curiosity and kind of having this curious mind.
Yeah.
But how do you think about that?
Well, I really got into business because I wanted to invest more to build this freedom, this time freedom. I know that if I have, let's call it $3 million invested in equities, I can pull $150,000 to $200,000 a year in passive income and be done with work, so to speak. And that was my objective all along. So I got into business initially to amplify and accelerate that objective. and so I had a real agenda. I was like, I wanted to be free financially. But then getting into business, it was like an adventure. And I have a call to adventure. I like being on adventures. Like life is, Helen Keller said that life is a daring adventure or nothing at all. And I like the thrill of the business and the challenges that go with it. And I would say, to answer your question, my brain likes to solve problems.
Yeah.
And I guess it just gets addicted to solving new problems. But I read Elon Musk's latest book, the biography that was done of him, the second book, and I realized I was playing not to my capacity. And I was encouraged and inspired by a friend and mentor of mine to build more than one business. Yeah. And what I learned along the journey was that you don't have to be busier to be wealthier, and you don't have to be busier to build more businesses. You just have to do it effectively the right way with the right rules. And you incidentally become wealthier when you work less, not more. If you're in the right type of businesses that enable you to do that. And so I guess that's been my prerogative. It's been, well, I'm going to keep building my share portfolio, going to keep the businesses I've developed alive and running, but do more of them. And because I enjoy it. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So I guess,
I guess it makes me think about you and how you've spoken about systems and building the right approach to building businesses so that you're more time rich, and how important it is to build systems into those businesses. That I think is a big failure point for so many business owners, is just getting those systems built.
Yes. I mean, I even encountered that problem with our network marketing business, where if you're in a network marketing style business or affiliate marketing style business, a lot of the systems come with the opportunity. So the company has developed the product, it's got the shipping and returns and payment system in place, all there. A lot of the hard systems are developed, but the soft systems aren't. And no great network marketing company even knows how to distribute. They know how to create the product and ship it, but they don't know how to do the marketing side, which is why they engage field leaders like us to do it. So it's like a partnership. And what's interesting about our network marketing business was that I discovered that I needed to build the soft systems to be able to create leverage with team members, build teams, have soft systems for them to sell, build a webinar system that went with it that really amplifies our ability to achieve more by doing less. And it took my wife and I a number of years to really do that. And the book that really changed it for me, well, there's two books. One was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which is a wonderful small business book. And it talks about the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. Yeah. And in that book, there's this one line that really struck me and hit me. And I was like, wow. And it was this: pretend that your business is a prototype for 5,000 more just like it. Not similar to it, but exactly like it. Yes, exactly. So it's like the McDonald's model. And so I thought, that's interesting. Well, now I have to actually do this business in a certain way that my field distributors can come in and model and copy like their own franchise ownership, but in an online world. And so we started to develop systems like that were able to run without us being there. And that's when I started to realize, that's what makes a business a business. Its ability for the owner to be able to step out of a lot of it or all of it, effectively, and still have it grow. And that's been my objective for all the businesses now, really. And we're getting there. The one that I'm not that I'm not involved in almost at all is the laundromat business.
Unsexy. Put an operator
unsexy.
in, and yeah.
I've got a business partner who's a great operator. We've got one lady who does cleaning, and it just looks. I mean, it's a very systems dependent business, which is great, and it's so far immune to AI. And it's a great little business, but not easy to get, not easy to acquire, and we want to get more of them. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like so many business owners talk about putting systems in. They talk about creating standard operating procedures. They get caught up in the paperwork. They don't actually put the systems in, and you, like you were saying, it takes time. It's hard work, and it takes time.
Well, what's interesting about that is that I've got, like, our education business is fairly leveraged. I actually spend, of contact hours, I probably only spend about 3 to 4 hours a week contact in that business. And its revenue, is multiple 7-figure revenue. And that's interesting because you think, well, you don't spend much time in it and it brings in so much. And that's because I've got 2 great partners that one looks after marketing, one looks after the back end sales and acquisitions, and I look after the delivery with help. Yeah. So I'm, there's a team of, I'll call it 10, that run that. And so
that run a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah. And so if you want to have freedom, you've got to give away your margin. So for example, I know it's possible to have high margin businesses with not big teams. I get that. But for most part, you've got to actually, if you want to, as Dan Martell says, buy back your time. You've got to buy back with money. Yeah. So like I don't want to run the marketing components there. So I pay my partner to do it, and I don't want to run the sales, and I pay people to do it. And I don't want to run some of the operations. I pay to do that. And I don't want to do everything manually. So our tech stack is like $10,000 a month just to have the tech. So I'm giving out, like I'm dishing out margin to have my time back. And the same with our law.
It's got to be done properly, because there's so many businesses who dish out $10,000 and are just wasting money.
Yeah, and the way to do it, and the point I was going to allude to was this: I've never written an SOP in my life.
Nice, yeah.
And the reason for it is because, yes, you are correct, is that people get so ingrained. It's like when they write a business plan. I've also never written a business plan. I mean, I think I've probably written a 90-day game plan, which might be considered a 3-month business plan, but I've never really done it, because what happens is if you get into action, you can pivot and test and measure and move based on what the market tells you, not what you're trying to put on paper. And so with the businesses, when I'm overwhelmed with something, it's the market telling me I've got to implement some form of leverage there, be it people leverage or systems leverage, and I've got to spend the money to do it. And so when I feel overwhelmed, that's the signal. I don't need an SOP to tell me that I've got to get out of that role. It's obvious, because I'm fiddling around with low-value tasks and it's seeping out all my time, and I can tell because, hours go by and I'm like, what am I doing? So that's the signal. And I tell you what, in my latest book, I talk about it because it's a paradigm shift, because how most boomers grow up and most Gen X, and for a large part, even millennials, we get taught that if you want a job done right, you've got to do it yourself. And also a lot of people struggle with cloning other ideas or modeling something that already works, because they think they've got to invent every part of their business. And they get stuck. That's the mindset they get stuck in, because they just have so much control. It's like a control fetish. Like, I must do that. No one's as good as me. It's ego driven. It's scarcity based.
I was going to say, I think that's where it lies. Nobody's as good as me. And it comes to choosing the wrong people as well, I guess, to some extent. Sort of
yes.
Saying,
but of course, it's not your fault.
No, it's not my fault that I got the wrong person.
Yeah, it's not my fault. It's our fault because we don't know how to recruit and train effectively.
Yeah, you've got to go out there and look for the right people to do the job, and not just hire some no offense to folks straight out of college or whatever, but somebody.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're out of college, like if you're useful and reliable, I can work with you.
Yeah.
But if you're not useful and you're not reliable, I cannot. And useful doesn't mean you know everything. It just means that you're prepared to be coachable and you show up on time and you want to work, and I can work with that. But what I've noticed is one, when it comes to hiring, it's better to get a partner on board than it is to get an employee. That's the first thing I've learned. And the other thing is that if you're bringing a partner on, or anyone who wants to participate, more of an independent worker inside your organization, they're going to be a superstar from day one. And if they're not, they're probably not a good fit. And it's just getting rid of them very quickly is important. So like I had this experience where we were trying to outsource bring in the missing component in our business, in our education business, which is content creation and scaling content across multiple channels and, so forth. Very important part of the business.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where we had to invest in that area. And I remember bringing on a certain person. I was saying, hey, you can come in, you can be independent, I was going to offer a piece of the bit. Like, it was going to be a great opportunity, but of course they had to prove themselves. And as they came in, they just dropped the ball a couple of times in the first couple of weeks. And it was just, you can tell it's not a fun experience. And you've got to just come to terms with it. And you go, you know what? That's not the right person. And the faster you can do that and the faster you get rid of them, the faster you open it up. And I opened up a spot and I just connected with someone and they came in and they were superstars from day one. And they have over-delivered every month since we engaged them. So now all of our partners, our marketing, content, and sales, all partners over-deliver. And that's what makes the business successful.
So you've actually almost gone out and looked for A-player partners as opposed to A-player employees.
Yes. A-player partners.
We've got the best partners we can find.
Yes, absolutely. Without a doubt. And when you've got great partners in an effective business model, like, it doesn't matter how good your partners are, if the business metrics don't work, it's the business metrics that will win out in the end. So if you're in a dying business, it won't matter how good your partners are. However, if you have an A-grade thoroughbred horse and you want to win the Melbourne Cup or the Royal Ascot, it does matter what jockey you have. And so if you've got a great business model, then by all accounts, just go for the best people. And people say, Lloyd, I can't believe you give away that. No. I said, well, if I want the best to be able to stick around and not go anywhere else, I will happily pay them. And there's some months, like the other month, I think one of our sales reps made more money than the bit. Like, it was just incredible what they did. And you've got to be prepared as a business owner for other people to get wealthy with you. And I think a lot of people don't want that because they get greedy. I'm the owner. I must make all this money. And
I must make more than everybody else in the business.
Yeah. And when I was in real estate, I remember there was this one agent when I was working for Ray White, and he was like, he had the whole luxury market sewed up here. He was making millions. He was the best. And I remember the owner of the business, the franchise, he said to me once, he makes more money than me. And I pay him all that commission. But they were happy to because they bring them so much business. So you can either have two things. You can either have the money or the time, but you can't have both.
Yeah.
You've got to give away one to get one back.
And I mean, that you mentioned Dan Martell a little bit earlier, and we talked about how he sort of talks about trading time to buy back your time. So paying to buy back your time. I'm really interested in where you've gone with your book and what's coming.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to his team 2 years ago, and I bought his book, and they said, "Oh, have you read it yet?" I said, "I haven't read it because I'm too scared that when I read it, it's going to be so good that it's going to start. I wanted my book to be my work and not based on
somebody else.
Dan's work. So I just neglected to read it. But what's interesting is I'm speaking at the same event as Dan in August. A buddy of mine's at Dreamfest here has got Dan to come and be the keynote speaker here. And so I have seen Dan floating about. He's friends with a couple of my friends, but I've never met him in person, which I probably will in August. But I think what's made his book so effective, number one, he obviously is an incredible entrepreneur, but it's very timely. And I know he wrote that a couple of years ago and he's been promoting it over time since. But it's timely because people don't want more money. They want money to get time.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, they lose sight of that and they just get addicted to the money. And he's got some wonderful strategies in that book on how to buy back your time. And he's the master of doing that. And I would hope that my book is my own version of that. But because I'm my money niche, I've geared it towards becoming time rich, which is, I think, also an important concept. Yeah.
What is that concept?
Yeah. Good question.
I mean, we have a limited amount of time, I guess, and we can't manufacture it. We can't create it. I suppose the only way we can create it is buying it back. And I see business owners who've got their calendars and AI trying to just kind of slot things in, and if they lose a place or whatever, it just kind of slots into the next place. And I just think, first of all, you're probably not doing work you should be doing. It's probably the 80% you should get rid of. But I'm really interested in your perspective on this.
Well, I learned from Naval Ravikant that, or Naval is how you pronounce his first name, I think, that an oversubscribed or an overscheduled life is no life at all. Like, I know I used to be overscheduled, but then I read a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Comer. Mark Comer? Anyway, in that book it said, like, you don't want to overschedule you can't live by minuscule 15-minute blocks during your whole day. I mean, what type of life is that? And I think if you're doing that type of life, you're not really implementing the lessons that I share in this book, and you're not buying back your time. And so the objective is not to be overscheduled and be busy all day long. In fact, the subtitle of my book, the hook, is How to Stop Being Busy and Start Getting Wealthy. And what I noticed was the busyness is the opposite of wealth. They're on two separate ends of the scale, and the busier you are, the poorer you get, either time poor or actually poor.
And you see that, right? You see that in business owners. The ones who are super busy are the ones who just haven't got it right.
Yeah, and who's the least busiest person who's the wealthiest?
Yeah.
If you can have a guess, out of all the the big billionaire hitters, who's the least busy but the wealthiest?
I mean, Warren Buffett comes to mind straight away.
It's Warren. You pick up his diary, he's just got nothing in there. Like, he might have a haircut once, depending on what he wants to do, but he controls it. And if you look at how that's possible, is because he's buying whole businesses, and he's not getting caught up in the weeds of how to run them. He's got great managers and partners who do it. And so he's probably the GOAT when it comes to building wealth with also protecting your time. So I've learned a lot from him and modeling him in my life. And so that's why even today, like, when we jumped on the podcast and we had a bit of a time mix up, I was straight available. Yeah. Like, because I don't have an overscheduled calendar, it doesn't mean I don't work. It just means I'm very particular and intentional. With what I'm working on. And I know that if I'm too busy, I haven't got the right person or system in place to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So I'll move to implement that. And
we had a bit of a time scheduling thing, and straight away though, you were onto your VA. Hey, I need you to move this, job done. And then we kind of jumped into this, which
yeah, because otherwise I would have had to sit on and move the appointment and talk. It's a great example of like quickly delegating. Can you do that?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, as a business owner, you want to transcend technical work, and you want to be like the arranger of things rather than the doer of things.
Rather than spending 80% of your time in execution, you want to be spending time in strategy, coaching your team.
Yes.
That's where you want to be putting your time, and kind of maybe 20% in that execution, but moving it all up.
You always have to execute in some respects in your businesses. That's why it's important to have some skills that can allow you to do it. But God, when you can find someone else to do it for you who's also better than you, it's even better. And that's what I've learned the most in business. It's actually identifying great talent and letting them do a better job than you, and you just figuring out, okay, where is the strategy of the business going, and setting vision, setting targets, encouraging, having fun, making sure your customers are enjoying their journey, and that's the objective, managing your book so you're making a profit.
What's a big lesson out of the book? I mean, people sounds like kind of one of the key things for time, but what's a big lesson that we can look forward to reading about as it comes up?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I wrote it with the intention that it's going to be a timeless type book. And so I wrote kind of like the 4 laws of being time rich, and the 4 laws that I discuss are the law of definite purpose, because if you're not focused on one thing, you're distracted by everything. The second law is the law of elimination, meaning most people are just stacking on too many things without eliminating something else, which is akin to more like building a statue instead of chiseling away what's not supposed to be there to get it.
Yeah.
And the third law is the law of leverage, which is how to achieve more by actually doing less, which is people leverage, including bringing on team and also partnerships. And then systems leverage, which is soft and hard systems. And then capital leverage. How can you leverage your capital to buy whole businesses that produce cash flow and already come with the people and the systems? So that's that part, and that's law 3. Law 4 is the law of priority, meaning if you're working on things and it's still not working, you're just prioritizing the wrong type of things. And in that section, I talk about the elimination of hurry from one's life, which is setting boundaries. And the reason why most people feel time poor is because they're trying to cram so much in and they're just not alleviating space. They have no creativity space. They are basically just on the hamster wheel, and they just cannot, John D. Rockefeller had a really good saying. He said that the busy man has no time to make money. And I think that's
true. It's so true. I mean, I'm super excited to read the book. It sounds really good. I mean, what's your definite purpose? You're involved in a whole lot of things at the moment. You're building businesses, you're investing, you're teaching, you're coaching. Yeah. What's that definite purpose for you?
Great question. The definite purpose I talk about in the book was to get financial independence and freedom.
Yeah.
And now I'm in that position. My definite purpose now is to maximize my day for things that I love to do, and minimize the things I don't like to do. I think that because I love to teach and I love to create and build team and business, and I love building wealth and investing, and I mean that's and spending time with family and my wife, and so
the dog Elvis. I think we heard Elvis.
Elvis, he's around the corner there, Elvis. Yeah, hey Elvis, you've definitely done your work. I mean, like I'll go and walk him up. Like, I guess it's like maintaining this time-rich life is my definite purpose. But I think if we can unpack it, it's like really giving people this chance that they to build it themselves. So I love to give the wisdom that I have in books and the podcast and mentoring, and I love to do that because I know how hard it is to build the life of financial independence that you want. And so I guess my definite purpose is to
help people to do that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
I mean, this shows all about freedom and creating entrepreneurial freedom. And I typically kind of end with a question around what freedom means to you. But to some extent, I think you've probably answered that there. But what does freedom mean to Lloyd?
I think it's really just a matter of freedom boils down to mitigating or minimizing the things that you loathe to do. I really do think that. For me, it was about getting rid of commuting. I hate commuting. And I don't like working with people who are, B grade, C grade. I don't like working with incompetent people. And they're incompetent not because they're like you, but they're lazy incompetence. I just don't. I feel it's not.
It sucks your energy as well, doesn't it?
Yes, I don't like working with certain people, and I also don't like commuting. And so I try to encapsulate my life. Like my commute went from 3 hours a day down to 5 seconds. So my freedom definition is no commute, work with people you want to work with on a fulfilling mission that lights you up and aligns with your spiritual gifts and helps people and makes the planet better. That's freedom in a nutshell, I think, for me.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I really am looking forward to the book. Is it kind of pre-order on Amazon, or are we waiting for that date to come out? Or?
I've got this really cool deal that I'm on at the moment. I think it's still, I ran it to my list to get some pre-orders for the publishers so they didn't freak out. And so we ran it, and I think it's still available. If you pre-order the book, which you can go to Amazon anywhere and type in Become Time Rich, you can pre-order it. And if you pre-order it, you take a screenshot of your order confirmation and share it to your Instagram story and tag me. and tag me in it, you'll get an automated message from Instagram to jump onto my list, and I will give you my latest Become Time Rich AI course that I just did for free. And that's to encourage people to jump in and pre-order it so that I can help the publishers not have a heart attack.
So we'll put that all into the notes. And there was a point I was going to ask you about AI, but I think that's a whole other discussion. And I mean, there's just, I think so much that can be done there. But Lloyd, I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you adjusting your schedule and coming on.
Of course. Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I mean, really enjoyed the conversation. So great questions.
Me too.
I'll do it again sometime.
That's it for today's episode. Big thanks to Lloyd Ross for joining me and sharing what it really means to become time rich. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's rethinking your schedule, building a better systems, or stepping back to ask what you actually want from your business, make sure to check out Lloyd's new book, Become Time Rich. It's out the 28th of May, and you can pre-order it from Amazon right now. The links are down below. And I think if you tag Lloyd on Instagram with your order confirmation, you can unlock his new course, and obviously there's some great things that come with that. And then if you're enjoying the conversations and you come to the end of the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps people to discover the show, gets in front of more great entrepreneurs like you, and brings more fantastic guests back. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.